Nails and Jelly Spoons, Tim Dowd for living with MS in Tenerife. I've decided to do like a food vlog, but I'm not going to eat in front of you. I'm just going to let you know what I'm actually cooking for the week and how I work out the menus and stuff. So we're going to start off with an easy one, which is basically just a morning bit of comfort. It's an egg and bacon butty. I get the bread from Mercadona. It's like these soft, they're called crystal buns, and they're already cut. And you can buy them, 4 of them in a pack, just stick them in the freezer. And then when you want one, you just take one out and pry them apart, and then just let them defrost. Really, really good. And they're so fresh as the day they were baked. You can toast them in the oven, or you can't really put them in a toaster because they burn easily. But I prefer them just fresh with an egg and bacon on it. So here's the egg and bacon butty.
Llegaste a mí como una luz de primavera.
Now we've got a recipe that I got from Jamie Oliver, actually. I think it's in 5 ingredients, the book 5 Ingredients, and it's called Peachy Pork Chops. And basically it's pan-fried pork chops with peaches. This is in the name, I suppose. And then I did twice baked potatoes, and the peachy pork chops, just a tin of peaches with its juice. You actually drink the juice. You don't use the juice in the recipe unless you want to. And it does say you got to do some sort of I think it's brandy or bourbon or something, which gives you the, to flambe it and stuff. I've had it both ways, and it tastes pretty similar either way. But you do get a sort of a tang from the bourbon. Yeah. So basically, you put the pork chops in a cold pan, and you fry them up in their own fat, and then add the peaches, I suppose, and we did it with the twice baked potato. And what I did is I baked a potato, we call them Jackie potatoes because Jackie's given me the recipe. Basically just rub a potato with oil and salt and prick it and stick it in the oven. And then when it's done, you cut it sort of, so you got 2 flat bits, scoop the middle out, put whatever you want in there. Typically I'll put some sort of cheese in, and Philadelphia cream cheese, maybe some chives, bit of garlic. If you roast garlic with the potatoes in like a foil, tin foil, bit of olive, cut a whole bulb of garlic in half, put olive oil on the 2 halves and a bit of salt, and just put it into foil and stick it in with your potato, and they bake, and then you just squeeze them out. Bloody lovely. And you can mix them with potatoes, chives, cream cheese, as I said. You can even put a bit of grated cheese on the top if you want. And then you put all that stuff back into the jacket and then put them under the grill. So twice baked potatoes. That was really good. Peachy pork chops, yum. I did a couple of carrots with it as well, but it's enough just to have the potatoes, the pork chops and the peaches, to tell you the truth. And here they are.
Como una luz de primavera, con aire puro que libera mi corazón.
The next thing was it's something that I never had until I went to Bavaria, and I used to buy it ready-made from the butchers. I mean, it was like fresh because the butchers made it fresh. It wasn't packet or anything. So the butchers would have like a section for raw meat and a section for like sausage, salami, ham, that type of thing. And in that section was this thing called OBATZDA. And OBATZDA is a Bavarian name for a cream cheese. And I think it comes from angebatzt, which is also Bavarian, for means that it's dolloped, if you like. So I think that's the nearest translation I can get, is dolloped. And the way you do it, you get brie or camembert. I think it's brie is in the original recipe, and some onions. And what I do is I'll slice the onions and soak them in some apple vinegar, just to pickle them. You don't have to soak them in a long time, and give them a squeeze. You can chuck the apple vinegar away. You're not going to use that. And then you put the onions and the brie and unsalted butter. And theoretically, it's half brie and half butter, so you can make a lot of it. And some sweet paprika as a thing, a bit of pepper, and then just a little bit of beer to give it a creamy texture, because I mean obviously the butter and the brie and the onions is going to be sort of crumbly, isn't it? Even though it's like creamy, it's still not spreadable, if you like. And so you put enough beer in to make it spreadable, and then stick it in an old pot, you know, with a lid like you get from the Chinese takeaway or the Indian, and then stick it in the oven. Stick it in the fridge, and then you can bring it out and have it on bread. Typically it's served with these pretzel sticks. I don't know what they're called in Britain. I think they're called, no, I can't remember what they're called. Put in the comments if you know what they're called anyway. And onion rings on the top. So basically it's like an ice cream scoop of this cheese. So it's not too runny that it'll fall to bits, but it's spreadable. And it doesn't have to be mixed in too much. So there's bits of cheese, bits of butter, so you can actually see the differences. And then they put this onion rings on top, and then serve it with a pretzel, typically. And you can like just rip the pretzel to bits and put a dollop on the end and scoff it. And I found out that Germans actually eat one thing. So if you go to a beer garden, there's no stigma in having a plate of cheese or a plate of smoked ham or serrano ham or whatever. And this OBATZDA is also good. Bratwurst, sauerkraut, typical food, German food. But OBATZDA is a Bavarian delicacy. Take a look.
Llegaste a mí con amor libre y sincero. Lo que yo siento es verdadero amor por ti.
Talking of Bavaria, Lidl were having a Bavarian week, and they got knödels, which is like potato dumplings with bread inside, and finger noodle, which is what they call it in Bavaria. I think Schupfnudel is another word for it, although the Schupfnudel I think are a bit thinner and longer. Finger noodles are because they're the size of your fingers, and it's also made of potato. In fact, it's probably the same dough as the knödel, which is basically boiled and raw potato, half and half I think it is, and you mix it up in a dough with a little bit of potato starch. I think that's it, salt and pepper, mix it all up, and then form it into sort of finger noodle type shapes, which is got like thin at the end and fat in the middle. But you can actually buy them, and they actually taste the best. I've never got them right making them myself, so Lidl is the place to go. Finger noodle in the Bavarian week, and it's with the knödels and probably next to the bratwurst. So we had the finger noodles with bacon bits and sauerkraut, and it was fantastic.
Amor por ti. Cada día tu amor me da felicidad y despierta cosas que nunca sentí jamás. Creo que nunca entenderás lo que siento por ti. Lo que siento por ti.
For those of you who watch Balcony Banter, you'll probably know that I make my own pizza dough. And I got the recipe, I think, also from Jamie Oliver, or his mate Geraldo, or what his name is. I don't know, I think Geraldo, I think it's Geraldo. And basically it's a very simple pizza dough recipe. I use a whole kilo of flour in the mixing bowl, and then I make the, what's it called? Like the water, the sugar, the oil, and the yeast separately, just to make sure the yeast blooms. And then put the salt in the flour, mix that up, and then just whack one into the other. And I use 4 tablespoons of olive oil to give it the fat content. And then I knead that for about 10 minutes in the machine. And then I split it into 4, so they're like 250, well actually 320 gram dough balls because of the water and stuff. But I get 4 out of it, and I get 4 good sized pizzas, so the size of my pizza stone. And one of our favourite toppings is, Christina's favourite topping, to say the truth, is artichoke hearts, garlic and olives. Now the olives have to be black with the stone in, and the Aragon type olives, or the, what are they called? Fenugreek? Not fenugreek. Something Greek. Greek style black olives with stones. And they're usually packed dry, so there's no water. It's not like in water, so they're a little bit wrinkly, and they last forever, and they are fantastic. And you just what I do is I get this tomato fritto artisanal from Mercadona, and it's like a jar of fried tomato puree, if you like. It's not as thick as puree, and you can pour it, so you can put it straight onto your pizza like a sauce as it is. It's got a nice taste, so I usually put that on. Then my first layer of oregano, and I put a lot of oregano on, not just a few sprinklings. I sort of like cover it. Then I dot it with buffalo mozzarella, which is the ball of mozzarella cheese, the one comes in a bag with water in it. And I do like 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and then I do the ones in between. And then I do the same in the middle, but a little bit less, maybe just instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, instead of 8, there's probably 6 in the middle and then 1 right in the middle there. And then I lay the artichokes out, half heads. So you what I do is I take them out of the jar, I squeeze the water out, and then cut them in half, so they're like half heads. And then I put the olives on there, and then I thinly slice garlic, maybe 5, 6, 7 cloves even, and just sprinkle the garlic around, and then cover that with grated cheese. Excellent. But this one is my favorite, and it's the same type of base, but instead of artichoke hearts, I use, don't kill me for this, pineapple and anchovy. So the pineapples go in like just next to the cheese bits, the cheese balls, and then the anchovies go again in the middle there, and like a clock around the outside. And it's sort of a sweet and salty flavour. And I know that people say pineapple does not belong on a pizza, and apologies to any Italians that are watching. I did see once an Italian restaurant that did pineapple pizza. All the other pizzas were like 10, 50, 11 euros, 12 euros. Pineapple pizza, 100 euros. So you can have it, but you're going to pay through the nose. But that is my favorite, and this is the pineapple, anchovy pineapple pizza.
Lo que siento por ti, lo que siento por ti, lo que siento por ti, lo que siento por ti.
So usually towards the end of the month, we start sort of saying what we've got in the fridge and what we're going to eat. And sometimes I just can't be bothered, and I just do egg chips and a bit of bacon. And this is egg chips. What do you say? Is it egg and chips or chips and egg? Say in the comments which one you prefer, egg and chips or chips and egg, and whether you have bacon with it or not. Egg and chips, chip butty. Egg and chips, I think, for me, but some people say chips and egg. There you go. Chips and fish, is that a thing? Fish and chips, I think it's the real one. Chips and a fish. A Bob's worth of chips and a fish. Famous line out of what play? It was also a film, but it was a book and a play. There you go.
A mí como una luz de primavera, con aire puro que libera mi corazón.
So making my own cheeseburgers. I have a way I do it, right? So what I do is I'll go to the Mercadona and I'll get one of those packs of mincemeat that are sort of in rows. You seen them? They look like curly things like that. And you can get a 500 gram one, or you can get a kilo. Now, depending on what I'm going to do the rest of the week, Like say I'm doing a lasagna or a moussaka at the weekend or something like that, I'll get the kilo, and then I'll cut the burgers from that meat. And I'm saying cut the burgers because this is what I do. Let's say I'm going to do just a pasta sauce some later on in the week. Then what I'll do is I'll take the meat out, but I try not to move it too much, right? So it's all sort of like in rows, if you like. And then I'll roll it so the rows are still going down like that. But I don't squash it, just roll it up into sort of a burger size roll, like a log, and then cut it in four, basically. So 500 grams is going to give you a 250 gram burger 4 times. Or you can do 2 burgers, and then the rest is enough for, no, you're not going to get 250, you're going to get 125, that's right, quarter pounders. So you cut them into 2. What I normally do is I cut them into 3, and then the bit that's left over I'll use for the pasta sauce, because you don't need a lot of meat for the pasta sauce, especially Chris doesn't like that. And yeah, so basically it's just rolled up and then cut. And then when you're ready to do it, you salt the top as you put them in the pan. And then you turn that one over and salt the other side. That's pretty good. And it's just salt. You can put pepper in, but pepper will burn if you put it in the pan with pepper on it. That's going to burn. So yeah, but those are the best because they actually form and sort of gel together without having this mushy, don't work the meat too much, basically, is the thing. So those burgers are excellent. And then screaming hot pan, a little bit of fat in the pan if you want. And don't use margarine. Always use real butter, real fat, like lard. We can get lard here. It's called mantequilla de cerdo, which is basically pork butter. And you get it right next to the pork, and it comes in a tub. And that's where you get lard. So if you say there's no lard here, then basically that's where you look for it, not where the butter is. You look for the lard where the meat is, and it's called mantequilla de cerdo. Anyway, so cheeseburger.
Que libera mi corazón. Llegaste a mí con amor libre y sincero. Lo que yo siento es verdadero amor por ti.
Now the next one is basically a leftover meal. It's ready, steady, cook. So what I'd done some roasted vegetables, including cauliflower and tomatoes and peppers and stuff. And there was some left over, so I froze it in a bag. So I had this bag of, well, I called it ragu, but it probably isn't. It's sort of like cauliflower and peppers and onions and stuff like that in a little bit of sauce. And so what I did is I put a slice of onions and sliced potatoes in a greased bowl, and then put this ragu on top, and then shoved a bit of cheese on top, and that came out as a nice little baked cauliflower thing. So that's what I tend to do also, is to buy something and then use a little bit in another meal, like I did with the cheeseburger mincemeat, So I always try and get maybe 2 meals out of everything I buy, and that makes it cheaper. In fact, you'll probably see later on what I'm doing with salmon. Anyway, this is the Ready Steady Cook cauliflower bake.
Cada día tu amor me da felicidad y despiertas cosas que nunca sentí jamás. Creo que nunca entenderás lo que siento por ti.
Talking about salmon, here it is. I went, and in Mercadona you can get either a tail of salmon in one piece, or you can get slices of salmon, and the slices are above the top, but they look like a one piece, but they're not. When you open them up, they're already sliced, and I've made that mistake once. The thing is, the ones at the top are cheaper, and the ones below are between 8 and 11 euros, so they're pretty big pieces. So anyway, I bought one of the big pieces. I think it was 10 euros something, and then I got it home. and I took 2 steaks and the little tail end bit. So the 2 steaks were actually so big I could cut them sideways and have like 2 pieces. And so I had 2 pieces and then another 2 that I could freeze and the tail that I could freeze. So I took the 2 pieces in the tail and froze them in one bag, but folded the bag over so I could get one out and put the other one back in if need be. And then I basically just took 1 salmon fillet steak, cut in half, and pan fried that. And Jamie Oliver again helped me out on how to pan fry a thing. Basically you do it all on the skin side and that becomes really crispy, and then you turn it over just to do the top side, but you don't cook it all the way through. You put that to the side. Then in the same pan you make your sauce, which was like butter and cream and capers and salt and pepper and spinach. So it was a spinach cream sauce, and then what you do is you put your salmon back in with the skin on top, just to cook through in the sauce, and I served it with mashed potato, and that was fantastic. That was really, really tasty. You can actually cut the skin off if you don't like it. In fact, I think this time what happened was the skin actually stuck to the pan and I had to pry it off with a spatula, but then it became really crispy. So yeah, take a look at this.
Lo que siento por ti, lo que siento por ti, lo que siento por ti, lo que siento por ti.
And we are back to Sunday lunch or Sunday dinner. And the sauerkraut that I did earlier in the week with the finger noodles, I kept half, and that'll stay out of the fridge for 3-4 days. It's got white wine and vinegar in it. Oh, I didn't tell you how I made the sauerkraut. Okay, I'll tell you how I made the sauerkraut. We get a jar of it from Mercadona again if you want, or you can get it from any of the other shops. But in the Mercadona it's called chukrut, and it's in a barrel jar. And take it out. First of all, you'll get a heavy bottom pan and put in a sliced onion or half a sliced onion, depending on how much you're making, a sliced onion and cubed apples, peeled apples in cubes, chuck those in, and you brown those in butter. And then you put your jar of sauerkraut in and give it a toss, and then put a bit of white wine on top and bring it to a simmer, and then mix it all up. Put in a bay leaf and juniper berries, although I couldn't find juniper berries, so I just did a bay leaf. And you can put a couple of bay leaves in, depending on how much sauerkraut you've got. And then put it way down low and stick a lid on it. And then let it sort of bubble through for itself for, let's say, 20 minutes, half an hour. And then let it go cold. Now that's important. Letting it go cold is important, because it always tastes better when you heat it up. And whilst that's going cold, I make an onion gravy. Basically just caramelize some onions in a pan, and then put in a little bit of flour and a stock cube, and then either beer to deglaze the pan. So just some dark beer splash, deglaze the pan, then fill it up with water. Otherwise it gets too bitter. So that's really nice, and that'll thicken up. And again, you can leave that to go cold if you want. What I like to do is to actually pour the gravy into the sauerkraut, but Chris likes the extra gravy. So I only put a little bit of gravy in the sauerkraut and mix that up, but that gives the sauerkraut an extra flavour there. If you want, you can put bacon bits in your gravy and then chuck those in the sauerkraut as well. So whilst you're doing your onion caramelisation, you can put bacon bits in there as well. That's really nice. And if you don't have white wine, you can just use a bit of vinegar, a bit of white wine vinegar or apple vinegar. That works the same. And then I just roasted some pork. And the easiest way to roast pork is to dry it off the night before. Get some white vinegar and rub the top with white vinegar, and then put it in the oven. Put it in the fridge, wrapped in on all sides apart from the top with paper and foil. So you got like a little parcel. What I do is I just put the paper in, and I got this oven dish that's the perfect size for the pork that I use. Oh, the pork, I buy it over in Mercadona, in the Rosa Centre in Hipadino. And it's called, well, it's called belly pork or pancetta, depending on which side it is. But if you buy a whole one, so you got the pancetta this side and then belly pork this side, the belly pork I think has got the bones still in it and the pancetta doesn't. I buy the whole thing there for €14. It's probably about just under 2 kilos, maybe 1,800 grams. And then I cut that into 4. So I'll cut the pancetta off, and then I'll cut the belly pork in half and the pancetta in half. And then the square bit, usually the belly pork, I'll roast and with crackling. So to get my favourite crackling, basically all I do is stick it in a 250-degree oven right at the beginning until the skin starts to pop. And then I'll bring it out, stab it with a knife. I don't do the cut thing, I've never been able to do that. I just stab it with a knife just to make sure that the fat's coming out. And then it comes out quite well. If you can get one of these Chinese sort of with thousands of needles that you can go ka-chik, 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 then that's good, but I can't find one here. If you've got one and you want to give it to me and you want to bring it over, it's just like, I don't know, it's like lots of needles anyway. They're pretty good doing it. And you get a nice little crust with that. Don't forget to cut the bottom of the meat, not the skin, cut the bottom of the meat into your slices. Not all the way through, just down to the fat. So in the size of slices that you want. And then when you put it in this little oven dish surrounded with baking paper, oven paper, what do you call it in English? I don't know. Then that captures all the juices, which is quite nice. The disadvantage is you don't get a lot of the brown stuff for the gravy, but you've already made the gravy, so that's okay. And a lot of the juices you can just put straight into the gravy as well afterwards. So this is the roast pork and the rest of the finger noodles, I think it was. No, canoodle. Canoodle. I got these canoodles. Have a look.
No sé cómo explicarte lo que siento yo por ti. Lo único que importa es que llegaste a mí.
I actually told you wrong. This is the finger noodle with the sauerkraut, which is the leftover sauerkraut from the pork. The sauerkraut that you saw at the beginning of the video was probably the leftover from a pork I did 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. So this is the rest of the finger noodles, because when you buy the pack, it's too much for one sitting. So you either make them all and then freeze the cooked ones and then just warm them through, or you can just make half and freeze the other ones. It comes in a vacuum pack, so you can actually take out the bits you want to use and then just fold the vacuum pack over and stick it in the freezer, and then they'll freeze up. You don't even have to seal it really, just as long as they're lying on the empty bit, if you know what I mean. So yeah, those finger noodles are really good and they're dirt cheap, and it does 2 meals for 2 people, so it's 4 meals all in all. And it is comfort food, but you have to like the sauerkraut and the finger noodles. I think you'd like the finger noodles as a Brit, because they are sort of like crispy on the outside and way soft on the inside, not like chips at all. And they've got a particular sort of doughy flavour as well, or doughy texture. That's, yeah, to me it's just amazing. Although 25 years in Germany, I think the comfort food, I can have comfort food in like 2 continents and 4 countries. Right, so this is the finger noodle, the finger noodles, the leftovers.
Llegaste a mí como una luz de primavera, con aire puro que libera mi corazón.
The next one is actually a ready steady cook that I did for the first time here. So this is the first time I've made this, but I'll definitely make it again. Christopher says she's fed up of curries, and typically if I do a vegetable curry with lentils, that, you know, that's, I'll use vegetables and lentils, of course. But she said she's fed up of curry, so I thought I'll do something different. Now, I did use curry powder and I did use some Indian spices, but I also used cloves and a little bit of cinnamon as well. So it's like an Indo-Greek type thing. And what it was, I had a jar of lentils and I had half a bag of spinach that I'd used in the salmon earlier on that I'd frozen. So I thought, well, I'll do lentils and spinach, and that's it really. You know, and I thought, well, you can't just have lentils and spinach. So what I did is I went to Aldi, and Aldi have got this Divina, I think it's called, feta cheese. And it is the cheapest feta cheese on the island. It's still under €3 for a big block, and it's bigger than all the rest that are now going for €4, €5 and €6. So I bought this feta cheese. I always go and buy two because they last a long time, as long as you keep them in the fridge. And once you've opened the pack, you don't have to use all of it. You can cut half the block, and the other half you put in its own water with a little bit of extra water and maybe a bit of salt in a Tupperware, little Tupperware thing. Stick that in the fridge. That's the same as not opening it, basically. So as long as you're pretty quick with it and you don't touch it. So what I do is I take the top off the bag, make sure the water doesn't spill out, then I break half and I take that half out, and then I pour the water and the other one into a Tupperware, so I've not touched it with my fingers, and then put the lid on top, extra water and a bit of salt, and put that in the fridge. So you don't have to eat the whole of the feta cheese at once. Also, it's loads of calories. So, but what I did is I made this sort of like lentil spinach curry and let it seep through overnight. So I always make it the day before, or any curry I'll make it the day before. This one I'd never made before. But you put in the onions and the spices first, then you put in the lentils, then you put in the spinach, and then you fill it up with water or beer or whatever you want to use. I used a lot of apple vinegar as well in that one. Apple vinegar is basically Vindaloo style. Vindaloo is the curry that's made without water. It's only made with vinegar, and they did that for the ships because it would form a fat crust on the top, and it's vinegar underneath, and it would last for months basically, or weeks on ship. You just break through the fat, and yeah. Anyway, so that's beside the point. So this was lentil spinach sort of curry, but not too Indian. So Indo-Greek curry. And what I did is I took it out of the pot with a ladle into one of those little tapas things, like the earthenware pot things, crumbled the feta cheese on top and stuck it under the grill, and served it with a pita bread that you can get from Mercadona as well. You get 6 in a pack. It's like 2 sets of 3. So once you've cut one, you've got to eat 3. You don't have to eat 3 actually, because they do keep. If you keep them in a bread bin or freeze them, of course. Yeah. So this is spinach lentil feta bake with pita bread.
Mi corazón, cada día tu amor me da felicidad y despiertas cosas que nunca sentí jamás. Creo que no.
So you remember the salmon that we had, and I said I'd cut it into 2 steaks, cut the steaks in half to give me 4 pieces and a tail. Well, I've still got 2 pieces of salmon in the freezer, sorry. And so I took the tail out and I grilled the tail just on the skin side, and I grilled that through, then put it on a little pan, then put a lid over it so to steam it through. So basically it was just a raw steamed salmon, right? And I put that to one side. And then I bought some tagliatelle, and the tagliatelle I get is next to the pizza in Mercadona, in the fridge, in the cool section. And they have bags of tagliatelle and gnocchi, and they're $1 for a bag, and you can actually do half of them. I actually did all of them, and it was too much, so I had the rest of my breakfast the next day, which I didn't film. Because I'd already done bacon, so I ended up having double breakfast the next day. That's beside the point. So I got my leftover salmon tail, I've got my tagliatelle, and in Mercadona, if you go in on the right-hand side in Adeje, up in the village, in Los Olivos, on the right-hand side you got like the rice and the cheeses and the hams on the left, and you got the Serrano ham where they cut it for you. Right next door to that is some like chorizo sausages packed up and salamis packed up, and they've got these little pate jars, and they're dirt cheap. They're between 90 cents and 120 depending on which one you want. And there's about 18 different bloody flavours. Probably isn't, probably about 6 flavours, but it looks like loads. And there's one there called liquid bacon. It's not called liquid bacon, it's called jamon, but it tastes like liquid bacon. It's fantastic. But I'm not talking about that. Next to it, or below it, there's one that's salmon flavoured. So it's a bit like a salmon, potted salmon. Is that what they used to call it when I was a kid? Potted salmon, John West. God, that's taking me back. Was it John West? No, that was John West salmon. What was the potted salmon one? Who made that in Britain? Potted, I think it was potted. I think potted crab and potted salmon they did. Anyway, so it's like potted salmon. And I use the whole thing. So I make the, I take the thingy out, the salmon tail out and put it somewhere. And then in the same pan, I'll just throw in a tablespoon of Philadelphia cheese and this potted salmon, the whole thing, bang, bang. And then just in with the rest heated, you know, it's not even on. The ring isn't on, it's just the hot pan. And I just sort of melt the cheese and this potted salmon together. And then you chuck the tagliatelle over from the pot when it's done. 3 minutes it takes. Chuck it into the sauce and then mix it the sauce. You can loosen it up with a little bit more water, but don't. It looks like it's too sticky, but eventually it'll come together. So the danger is you put too much water in, and then the salmon and the cheese sort of de-emulsifies, if you like, and goes into like wet water and curds. So you can slop the tagliatelle over with water on it, you know, to give you a bit of moisture, but don't put an extra cup or half a cup of water in like you would normally do with a spaghetti or something like that. And you can also, if you want to, mix in some Parmesan into the sauce before you tuck your stum over, and then sprinkle with Parmesan on the top. And then you lay flakes of salmon on top of your tagliatelle, and fantastic. Salmon a la tagliatelle.
Es que llegaste a mí como una luz de primavera, con aire puro que libera mi corazón.
Well, that's the end of today's culinary delights. Can't say that after a beer, can you? And I hope you enjoyed it. Leave me some questions in the comments if you like. This is an evergreen. That means it's not time constrained. You can always do this. And if you like that, let me know, and I'll do another one in a couple of weeks. So this is Tim Dowd for Living with MS in Tenerife, signing off. See you. Good morning.
Lo que siento por ti, lo que siento por ti, lo que siento por ti. Cada día tu amor me da felicidad. Lo que siento por ti despierta cosas que nunca sentí. Lo que siento por ti, creo que nunca entenderás lo que siento por ti.